Hey Hacksters, happy Saturday. It is Arduino Day. That comes about once a year. And so Alistair Allen, our awesome correspondent, who's actually here at Teardown with me, separately, but also, has done an awesome blog post on two of the new boards that Arduino has just released today in celebration. And I'd like to show you that really quick. And then I'm going to go through some of my own favorite Arduino boards, which I happen to have with me because I never go anywhere without them. Uh, and yeah, then we'll check out some awesome tutorials that will help you get started in Arduino if you haven't done so before. Let's take a look. So this is on our blog, which is at blog.hackster.io, and it has a bunch of different sections in case you haven't checked it out before on various cool things that you can learn about so you can stay up to date with your Arduino and other Maker and Maker Pro knowledge. So there's two new boards from Arduino. There's the Maker Wi-Fi 1010, which is an update to the Maker 1000 released a while ago that had basically brought a small form factor Wi-Fi board to the Arduino pantheon. And then we also have the Maker NB500 or 1500, and the NB there stands for narrowband, which is a new kind of sort of quasi-cellular, not really, but low power narrowband IoT standard. Okay, so the Maker 1010 is very similar in form factor. They're trying to sort of standardize this smaller Arduino form factor now. So if you were building Arduino shields, maybe now is a good time to sort of update your previous designs to match with this. It has a couple of new modules. You've got a SAMD SAMD21 microcontroller on there instead of an Atmega chip, and an ESP32 processor, both available to you, which is kind of crazy. You can do two processors as part of your programming, and then also it has some cool features for secure authentication, which is a huge part of the future IoT scene, ideally the present IoT scene, but people haven't been super great about security. So now it's becoming easier than ever to make sure that what you're putting on the internet is safe and is not exposing the rest of your network to malicious attacks. And it helps you build in security as part of your design right from the beginning, which is incredibly important. So the NB1500, I'm not as familiar with, but it uses a SARA R410M module and an LTE-only module for global use. So it supports LTE Cat M1 and LTE Cat NB1. So the NB thing is something that's pretty new to me. I think that they've integrated in, or they have plans to integrate it into the new particle cellular boards and their mesh network connected particle boards. But yeah, if you're not familiar, I looked it up for us. So I found this article on IoT for All about what is narrowband IoT. Turns out it's sort of a modification on the LTE sort of system. And then you get low power efficiency, cost savings, reliability, wider deployment, and global reach. Yeah, so you can check out this article. I'll probably link it in the comments. They have a lot of solid thinking done about the future of this new narrowband technology for IoT, which I think is really exciting. We're seeing all kinds of stuff like LoRa and other types of networks become more popular as IoT, like networks specifically for IoT, become more of a thing. Super cool. Let's take a break from the computer and look at some physical stuff. So there, well, I guess it'll kind of be trading off because I've got some intros to these boards posted on Hackster, and some of them are included as part of the Hackster 101 series. If you're not familiar with Hackster 101, if you watch some videos and you're like, I have no idea what's going on here. I'm a maker, or I want to be a maker, but I don't know where to start. This is a good spot to go to. Check out Hackster 101. And it covers not only some basics of Arduino programming, but also what boards you should start out with, because it's not always an Arduino Uno. Arduino Uno is a classic and there's a bajillion tutorials out there. But if you want to do, for example, specifically robotics or wearable tech or whatever, you might, or home automation, you might want to seek out a board to start on, to learn on, that's really solid for that. And there are plenty of options that are not any more complicated than an Arduino Uno, so that's good to know. Let's take a look at, what's the first one here? Well, first up, Hackster 101. I lied about getting off the computer, I guess. How to use neopixels, how to use servos, how to use nodebots to talk to Arduino with your computer. And then some like basic coding things. So this is the Hackster 101. It's just Hackster.io/Hackster-101. Okay, enough of that. So first up, the light blue bean. This is an amazing, wonderful little board. It's teeny tiny, and I'm gonna show you it in real life, or real life for me. It's this big. It's got a couple things on here because it includes a proto board, which makes it super easy to prototype right on top of this board itself. And then also I've added a button and a haptic buzzer, but it runs on a coin cell. Let me show you. Just goes in there. And this isn't doing much that's super obvious right now, but it does work, I promise. And the way that this is really cool is that you program it with Bluetooth with your phone or other mobile device, which is super cool because it means that you can program it easily on the go. I've programmed this thing standing in line to present at a hackathon. Like, I was upgrading the firmware and stuff, like standing there sweating, being like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And I was like doing some stick-on tattoo design things that were powered by this, and like bridging the contacts with a paperclip, and I was doing this on my phone in line, and it totally worked, and I was able to debug and reprogram right there, and it uploads in seconds, which is super cool. So yeah, there's no actual USB ports on this. You don't plug it into anything. You just put a coin cell in it, and then you program it with Arduino code on your phone, and they've got a really great app for that too. It's called Bean Loader, but then there's also another app called Handy BLE that allows you to create custom graphical interfaces with buttons and stuff, so that you can push buttons and control like robots and stuff directly from your phone wirelessly, and it costs 30 bucks. This thing is amazing. I love it. They've got like a light blue, or what's it called? Bean Plus. But honestly, I love this one. It's an oldie but goodie, and it's tiny. You can even cut off this proto board so it's even smaller. And then, yeah, it's great for wearables because you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi connectivity, but you can control it from your phone, like I mentioned. And you can run robots off of this if you just use, you can run bike lights off it. I've done that. You probably need to use a separate power source and use a transistor to control it from here. But yeah, I love this thing. I could talk about it forever. So that's the light blue bean, and that tutorial is in the Hackster 101 series, and I tell you all about how to use it. Next up, home automation with particle. I don't actually have a particle board with me here, but this is a great system because you program it with something that's extremely similar to Arduino code. There are some slight differences actually, but it's very similar, and so I consider it an Arduino board. And so the original one that most people know is the Particle Photon, which is a Wi-Fi board. But they also have the Electron, which is their original cellular board. They've also come out with the Argon, Boron, and Xenon, which are mesh networked boards, which means they can talk directly to each other, and they can also like hop information back and forth like over multiple nodes in this mesh network, which is fantastic. And they can also do connections up to Wi-Fi and LTE from there. But they're also, yeah, constantly developing new ones. The great thing, I think, about Particle is that it's so flexible that you can, build on the Photon and then move it to something that does mesh networking or cellular or whatever really easily with the same code. And they've got an online graphical programming interface, which could be a little inconvenient if you don't have access to Wi-Fi, but really the strength of this board is its wireless networking capabilities. And yeah, they've got a great system that's constantly expanding. Plus, there's a million tutorials out there for particle boards, and they have already had several products released that use their chips inside. So you can actually easily port your prototyped Photon project to an actual manufacturable design. Next up, the tiniest and most convenient tiny Arduino that I have found is the TinyLully. It's made by Tiny Circuits, who are based out of Ohio, Akron, Ohio. And I love this one because, yeah, I mean, what else need I say? It's super tiny. That's its strength, basically. It's this big. I've got an LED on there, and it basically almost dwarfs the board, the LED itself does. And yeah, it's like as big as my thumbnail. Isn't that crazy? And it's still got like several, like six, I think, eight? There's 8 breakout pins on here. This is insane. Like digital and analog, plus power and ground pins easily broken out. And it's washable. You can like sew this into your garment and remove the power source, and then you can run it through the wash, no problem. And it's so tiny that you can just like stitch it into whatever. The closest analog to this, I guess, would be one of the Adafruit wearable boards, like the Gemma or the uh, Flora or something. But like, it's so small. Like, there's really nothing else I could ask for this. It doesn't have any wireless, of course, but that's because their goal was to be as tiny as possible. And you program it by hooking up this little connector thingy and hooking it up via micro USB. So that's really cool. And then you just pull it off. You're done. So I've got a tutorial on that, also in the Hackster 101 series. Super tiny. I've built a bunch of different projects with this as well, so if you're curious, check it out. Next up, the AppTiny 85. There's a whole series of AppTiny boards, actually, or these are chips. These are individual chips that you can program with Arduino code, and there's a bunch of tutorials for that. You can also find boards like the DigiSpark, pictured here, that connect the ATtiny to a super tiny breakout board that you can program over USB, which makes it a little bit easier, because otherwise you need to use an entire other Arduino. But, you know, if you want, you can have just a single chip here, which is really convenient for things like bike lights. I've made my last set of bike lights was powered off of an ATtiny 85 that was able to control big strips of NeoPixels. So that's one huge advantage of this thing. It's super tiny. Did I mention that? And it runs off of 5 volts. The TinyLully, by contrast, can run off of a coin cell, but it may have a little bit more trouble with like timing-based things. So the AppTiny is great. There's also a number of different chips available. So there are some that are incredibly low power in this series, and ones with more or less flash memory and stuff like that. So if you want to make a bunch of something and have it be pretty cheap, you could prototype on the DigiSpark and then, you know, make your entire PCB or whatever. If you're making a badge, you can make the whole thing with a bunch of these chips that are really easy to program all in a row. Super cool. I don't have any of those with me, because I'm a fool. Next up, the FeatherHuzzah is an Adafruit board. This one uses an ESP8266 to give it Wi-Fi connectivity, and if you're not aware, then this standard of shape is becoming really standardized across the industry now. So for example, the new particle boards that I just mentioned are also using a feather form factor. So if you're interested in doing something similar to Arduino, but maybe with more, I mean, similar to like the official Arduino boards, but with some other capabilities, yeah, Adafruit's a great way to go, these sort of feather boards. They've got a bunch of feather wings, which are basically comparable to Arduino shields, and they come in this form factor, very small. They have different ones that have different types of connectivity. They've got Bluetooth, they've got ones that do like data logging and stuff. It comes with a LiPo battery connection, a JST connection there. And we also have some with the Hackster logo on them. Super cool. We were excited that they did like a custom run for us. Yeah, so the feather boards are also super versatile. There are a bunch of tutorials and wings available for these. The other thing is that they're starting to come out with feathers that are based on SAMD chips and can be programmed or on a ARM Cortex M0 chips and can be programmed with MicroPython, which is, or CircuitPython, which is their version of MicroPython, which is Python for microcontrollers. And so you can program it not just with Arduino, though you definitely can use it with Arduino. And yeah, it gives you some flexibility there, but also with Python. Super cool. yeah, this one uses an ESP8266 for hooking it up, and we have a tutorial for that. It's just getting started with the FeatherHuzzah. And there's a really nice, simple way to connect this up to If This Then That, which is a service that's really useful for hooking up different internet-connected devices to each other, as well as services such as email and texting and stuff like that. So check that out if you want to build a sort of application and focus on that more than necessarily just the hardware. And then finally, the Teensy is an Arduino compatible board made by Paul Stoffrigen of PJRC. There are a bunch of different ones, but the strength of the Teensy board is generally that it is a workhorse. They have really intense, I guess, strong specs, and people tend to use these a lot for audio. So there's a lot of strong audio support for the Teensy. It's fast, it's got a lot of pins, and so I honestly am not doing it justice because I could run this on a number of different controllers, but I use a Teensy for my armor here. You see this animation that's running with the light up carbon fiber claws. This is all run on our Teensy, and the same thing up here. So it's really versatile. It's very small also, and so when it comes to like a small board that you can run Arduino on, this is a really great choice. Plus, like, it's got all these extra expandable pins in the back too. Super cool. Yeah, if you're looking for something that can handle sort of more intense logic and lots of processing power, then look at the Teensy series. They're really solid. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. And there's a ton of projects on for this on Hackster. So go check those out. That's all I got for you today. I am on the road, so I actually only brought like a few of these boards, but you can always find more in the Hackster 101 section. There's more board recommendations. Also on our blog, actually, I've posted some past blog posts on like the best boards for home automation, for robotics, for wearable tech, and things like that, and I'll try and post a link to that underneath this video. But also, go check out Alistair's post for Arduino Day on the new 2 Arduino boards. Let's check those out again for 1 second. The Maker Wi-Fi 1010 and the Maker NB1500. So that's your new Wi-Fi board and your new narrowband IoT board with the new Arduino form factor. And I love, oh yeah, final note, I love how they have labeled the pins on the side of the headers here. That is so convenient because there's, like, it saves space from being used on the board, so they could shrink it down a little smaller. But also, I get so frustrated when I plug something in to something else, whether it's like a shield or whatever, and the pin markings are hidden on the bottom or between the 2 boards, even worse. So like, you know, maybe the shield has the numbers on the bottom and the Arduino has the numbers on the top and you can't see anything. So this makes that so much better. I love this design consideration. It makes me so happy. Yeah, go check out the blog post, Hackster 101, all the other things. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and I hope you have a marvelous Arduino day. We'd love to see your projects. Ciao.